Story 1. I'm tired of hearing people say that they wish they learned how to do their taxes in high school. Those same people would have treated it like any other class and wouldn't have truly learned the material. Story 2. If the food and service are poor, consider discontinuing use of DoorDash. The vast majority of complaints about DoorDash come from individuals who have the ability to prepare or obtain food on their own rather than relying on delivery. Nearly everyone can manage without DoorDash. Most simply prefer the convenience. If you consistently encounter problems, it may be time to stop using the service. Story 3. Unrealistic movies can be absurd, like one about a green cat that can talk and starts a career in New York, while you're concerned about the car roof not opening correctly. Story 4. I'm tired of information technology and technical support staff complaining about having to assist individuals who are not familiar with computers with simple issues. It's part of your job. Stop complaining. The range of difficulties is what you signed up for. Story 5. The things they are supposed to be fans of. I cannot tell you how many times I have looked up online forums for nerdy hobbies I am excited to explore, and it is just a group of people complaining about it. God forbid we find any joy in this challenging environment. Story 6. Nothing is good enough for people anymore. Sports, clothes, and music are all mediocre. Everyone is so unappreciative. Story 7. You name it. I am tired of people complaining about it. Life is what we make of it. Complaining does not get us anywhere. However, I have learned it is human nature to complain. It is unfortunate. Story 8. Schools need to teach life skills. They were designed to teach academics while families are supposed to teach life skills. If you want schools to teach life skills, they will not be able to prepare your child for higher education. Choose one. Story 9. Current music. Every generation has had some poor quality music, but it is unwise to judge an entire generation based on the popularity charts. Furthermore, every generation tends to believe their music and media in general is the best. Story 10. People in movies and TV shows often do not call the police for selfish reasons, even when it would solve the problem. The more I see people in real life avoiding accountability, the more realistic it seems to me. Story 11. The temperature is either too warm or too cool to be outside. They are accustomed to having air conditioning to maintain the temperature exactly as they desire. Story 12. Politics often involves diverse opinions. There will always be those you agree with and those you do not. Can be exhausting to hear people constantly complaining about it. Story 13. Things that aren't a big deal, like relaxing. I understand it's slightly annoying, but I don't want to hear about how upset you are over trivial matters. I have my own concerns to be bothered about. Story 14. How much they dislike other people. Develop a new approach. Please show some personality. They make it their entire identity, or I wouldn't mind as much. Story 15. Airplane travel. The ability to cross hemispheres in half a day is remarkable, yet many still choose to complain about it. I travel frequently. Last week I was in Japan, which is a 10-hour flight from New Zealand. I watched 2 movies, several episodes of Archer, ate some food, and suddenly I was in Japan. I overheard people complaining about the flight being 15 minutes late boarding, the food, and the 45 minutes it took to get through customs in Japan. Story 16. Racism. The main factor that perpetuates the limited racism that exists in the West is that people continually bring up race. As Morgan Freeman stated, if you want racism to diminish, stop making everything a racial issue. Story 17. The new point-of-sale system our store has is terrible. I agree, and I am tired of hearing complaints about it as well. Story 18. Anything they have no decision-making power over, but use or participate in any way creates an endless loop. Story 19. I have family members who tend to focus on the negative, and I know I can do the same. It often feels like the same people are discussed repeatedly. One individual seems unable to stop fixating on at least one person they are frustrated with. I am tired of hearing about it constantly. Story 20. The other generation. Baby boomers complaining about posing Generation Z as mindless influencer wannabes, which is true for some, but also includes artists, scientists, environmentalists, and much more. While Generation Z complains about irrelevant baby boomers, true for some, yet the wealth of elder knowledge and life experience can provide great perspective. Story 21. I made the mistake of going into a subreddit about inheritance, where there was a lot of complaining that sounded like this. My sister was left 2.4 million and I only got 1.6 million. I realize it's a spectrum. One person's version of poor is another person's luxury, but it still irks me a bit. Story 22. The last thing I want to hear when I'm at the bar is someone complaining about politics. Story 23. Their own life should fuel improvement. Traffic is acknowledged. There are many cars on the road. The weather suggests staying indoors. One's health is important, so it's best to stay positive. Regarding jobs, if someone is unhappy, considering a job change might be the best option. Story 24. Oh, I'll never be a good writer like Terry Pratchett. Well, maybe you should stop reading so much Terry Pratchett and actually explore other fantasy novels. There is a lot of great material out there. Stop complaining about not being good enough. Just write your story. Edit it later and get feedback from a reader. If you keep lamenting how your writing will never be as good as the book you're currently reading, then perhaps you should consider a different path. This advice comes from my experience a year ago on a social media platform where many people were deeply into Discworld, and so many wanted to write but thought they couldn't. I wrote fan fiction without a care in high school and beyond, and you'll be fine too. People shouldn't complain about not writing well enough when even incomprehensible material has been published and sold. I lived in a time when we didn't care if something was poorly written. We just wanted to create something meaningful for ourselves and for the community we were part of. I'm sharing this because I'm tired of people claiming they're not good enough to write or draw. Sometimes it doesn't matter. You need to do what makes you feel good or write out a story that's been in your head for a while. Just do it. Story 25. Nothing. People are truly hurting. It is becoming more unbearable by the day. Whenever I hear people complaining, I want to understand why they are hurt, where it hurts, and what I can do to help. Story 26. Work. Especially when individuals have every opportunity to leave and find a job elsewhere but are too afraid to take risks. Story 27. Body counts, sexual orientation, gender identity, and what someone else chooses to wear are irrelevant. Why do you care about what someone else does with their body? Focus on your own life. Story 28. People get upset when others say males or females. Life is pretty good when these are some of the biggest issues people face. Story 29. Trump or Elon. It's getting better, but as a person whose life doesn't revolve around politics, it's quite annoying. Story 30. The series finale of the show 1923 on Paramount Plus has generated a lot of complaints since it aired. Shows do not always end the way viewers want them to, and there seems to be a sense of entitlement among some people. In my opinion, it was an amazing 2 seasons. Story 31. Every time there's a show I like that is between seasons, I join the subreddit for the show, and then when the new season starts, I see comments like, "Does anyone else think this season is worse than the other seasons? Ugh. This season is disappointing. Not as good as previous seasons." I know this is sometimes true, but I have seen this for every season of every show, no matter what it is. I've actually been noticing this long before I joined Reddit. It was the same experience in Tumblr fandom spaces, to be honest. Story 32. People who work in retail during holidays often share the meme of a customer asking a cashier, "Why do they have you working?" with the cashier responding sarcastically, insinuating that it's their fault. I dislike this because people would be working regardless of customer presence. It's not the cashier's fault where they work, and not everyone has family to celebrate holidays with. Some need to go to the store for necessities. This mentality can be very victim-oriented. I understand it can be difficult to work on holidays, but it is not the cashier's fault. Story 33. The common complaint is that life is very difficult. I always try to console and advise them for their benefit, but the next day they are ready again for the counseling session. Story 34. 1. ChatGPT is too nice to them. Modern conveniences are detrimental, and life was better in the 1990s and 2000s when nobody was connected. Story 35. Other people's driving can often be frustrating in almost every city. Nobody enjoys it. We must just get through it unless there is a real danger. A couple of months ago, someone's driving was so reckless that we had to swerve aggressively, making me fear we would overturn. While we experience bad driving frequently, that incident was so extreme that it was genuinely dangerous. It happened months ago, not every day, and we don't dwell on it. Story 36. How broken Britain is. When did everyone become such a pessimist about God's favorite country? Hanging on in quiet desperation might be the English way, but wallowing in complete despair about how unfixable everything is not. Story 37. It may be unfair of me, but I am tired of older individuals refusing to learn the basics of technology. Computers and the internet are not new. 2 generations have passed since they became commonplace. It really isn't that difficult. I can teach the basics in just a few hours. There are free courses available for all ages and abilities. Please teach your parents and grandparents. I am referring to those who refuse to learn, not those who are unable to do so. Story 38. Male loneliness epidemic. Male loneliness epidemic. Give me a break. Entitled individuals trying to present their incel rhetoric in progressive language. Story 39. I live in Japan as a foreigner. Some fellow expatriates here can't stop talking about how tourists behave. I understand it can be crowded, and I acknowledge that some can be rude, but most are nice, respectful, and simply enjoying their holidays. It's time to grow up and move on. Story 40. Transgender individuals, particularly in the UK, deserve support and understanding rather than being marginalized. It's essential to focus on more significant issues rather than demonizing a small minority. Story 41. People are complaining about Reddit moderators and saying they are literal Nazis. Unless the moderator is a literal Nazi, please remain calm. Story 42. That boycotts don't work when, in reality, they are just too selfish to give up their social media, online shopping, and retail preferences. Story 43. Chipotle has been disappointing for years. It is unlikely to improve. The only time I hear about Chipotle is when someone is complaining. I have never heard anyone mention how good it is. People only discuss the small portions, high prices, lack of freshness, or overall quality. There are many other restaurants, so it's best to try a different one. Story 44. Honestly, the extreme activists within the transgender community, notice I am not saying all transgender individuals, come across as self-centered individuals who do not understand that the rest of the world also faces discomfort. We all have to do things we don't like to get by, and even regular people are bullied and threatened. The impression they give is that they are more important than anyone or anything else, believing the entire world should revolve around their needs. Engaging in a conversation with them can lead to aggression, as they often react with anger, which is unattractive. They speak of tolerance while demonstrating zero tolerance for differing opinions, beliefs, or morals. In reality, most transgender individuals I've encountered simply go about their day like anyone else. They do not insist that you must recognize their gender or pronouns immediately or require validation for their identity. They do not allow their gender to define their entire being, nor do they act as though the world owes them attention and favors. To be honest, it's like anything in life. Too much of it can become overwhelming. This may explain why people in general are not fond of clingy partners. Story 45. Rich parents, influencers, social media, and narcissistic ex-parents. Misery loves company. People are jealous while failing to count their blessings. A lack of gratitude can genuinely drive you insane. Oh, and I will add sports teams too. I used to care, but it feels childish now. Story 46. Video games are a complex experience for players. The truth is that players often do not know what they want. Even when they finally figure it out, their reactions can vary. They may not appreciate it, they may dislike it, or they may enjoy it but become bored quickly. A video game can meet all expectations and still fail to succeed. Story 47. Politics has been the center of much discourse and seems to have created unnecessary hatred from each side in the last 8 to 9 years. Story 48. About matters that do not concern others and do not harm anyone, such as the consenting adults they date, how they dress, or their interests. especially when the complaint is presented as an observation about a large group of people, but is actually a distorted stereotype, and no one truly fits that description. Story 49. Cancel culture. People do not have to like the things you say or do. You are not being canceled when you are called out for your behavior or even perceived as problematic. People are exercising the same freedom of speech you used when you made comments they found objectionable. Do not complain about it. Perhaps consider boycotting specific brands or companies. Story 50. When a YouTuber complains about a normal issue or something that is not as significant as they portray it to be, or complains about trivial matters, it can be irritating. People working on different applications often express discontent in the same way. Even a 4-year-old child, who does not grasp the complexities of the world, becomes a subject of their complaints. They always find something to criticize. Story 51. The cost of video games. They are priced that way because people are willing to pay. We live in a culture that requires having the newest version of everything, even if it is poor quality. There is no reason for a baseball or basketball game to be released every year. Back in 2020, the Avengers game was sold in Canada for $127, and it was poor quality. The game was so bad that digital copies are no longer sold. It was removed from the PlayStation Store. I fortunately purchased a copy in 2023 for around $9. I have never played it. I just wanted to ensure I had a copy. Furthermore, people complain that games are all digital now and that there are no hard copies. If that is the case, then stop buying games. Make a deliberate effort to only buy hard copies and encourage your gamer friends to do the same. The only thing companies care about is the bottom line. They do not care if a game is good, well-liked, or has longevity because people will pre-order games and pay for season passes. The last game I bought was Diablo 4, and it was the most disappointing game I have ever played in my life, costing me $100. I played it for 2 months and felt cheated. But am I going to be mad at Blizzard? No. I was foolish enough to buy it because I wanted to play it immediately. That is like complaining that a $12 steak in a restaurant does not taste good. You should know better. Lastly, this is why Nintendo can still charge around $98 for a Pokemon game that is 10 years old. They actually create content that people will buy repeatedly and enjoy playing. They do not just release flashy products with cool art or storylines but minimal support, full of bugs, and overpriced because they care about their brand. The point is, it is valid to note how gaming is excessively expensive, but if you are still paying those prices, you only have yourself to blame. Story 52. Their previous misfortunes, especially when they happened a long time ago, do not make them special or deserving of attention. If something tragic occurred a few weeks ago, it is natural to feel sad and express those feelings. However, if it happened a year ago and you are still complaining, it indicates a lack of maturity. Story 53. The future and the world in general. I can rarely enjoy reading about the good things happening now without encountering numerous individuals complaining about how we are all doomed and everything is terrible. It seems that is their entire personality. Yes, I know a lot of bad things are happening. It's impossible not to notice. I read about the good things to avoid depression and to keep functioning. The first step toward making things better is to believe they can improve. It seems that 90% of the internet is, at best, doing nothing to help and, at worst, contributing to the problem. It is quite frustrating. Story 54. Nintendo Switch 2 pricing. The new console is significantly more powerful than the previous model. Its technology is more expensive to produce. When compared to similar consoles and handheld PCs, it justifies the price. While game development costs have not increased, perhaps you can purchase fewer games than before. It is important to manage your finances responsibly. Story 55. Being in a toxic situation that is at least partially one's own fault, and refusing to fix it when the solution is easy and obvious, can be challenging. I had 2 friends complain to me for months, one about a toxic boyfriend and the other about a toxic roommate. I admit I have been in similar situations before, but after personal growth, I realize I cannot enable others to continue in these patterns. Story 56. Gas prices. You could get a hybrid instead of a Ford F-150 for your grocery needs. My Tesla has gone off-road more often than most off-road vehicles. Story 57. The outrage over the USAID situation. Musk brings in a team of skilled computer experts, and within a few days, they expose more government corruption and incompetence than we have ever witnessed. Yet people are upset with him? Shouldn't everyone be thanking him for revealing what is happening? Story 58. Complaining about how they cannot afford anything. Budget. Get a job. Find a better job. Get a second job. Budget. It was not any easier 30 years ago, but this is how we managed. My wife never earned more than $15 per hour. I did not earn more than $20 per hour until 15 years ago, and it was not by much, as much of it was taken by the union. Story 59. The price of gas unless you subsequently support urbanism and a less car-dependent country. I am frustrated with people who expect cheap gas and then complain about any developments that are not car-dependent large houses. Don't you understand how you contribute to such high prices? Story 60. I can't stand both white women and white men, including both Eastern and Western white Europeans, complaining about each other everywhere on the internet while treating their own lifestyles as competition by overestimating themselves. I'm done with the various pills and ideologies, including select feminist perspectives and the men going their own way community. Story 61. Complaints about how unfulfilling their relationships or marriages are often stem from a misunderstanding of the difference between love and sex, as well as the distinction between being loveless and sexless. Story 62. Problems they created themselves, immigrants and transgender people. They claim they want to escape relationships and individuals, yet they become jealous when someone tries to move on and break free. They are essentially deceiving themselves and others, and failing to value their partner. My friend has been exhibiting this behavior for years, and it has been quite something to observe. I may end up losing a friend over their support for harmful attitudes toward transgender individuals and women that they seem to have adopted from spending too much time online consuming sexist content from fringe websites. The issue is that he has an effeminate-looking son who is autistic, and he took offense when I mentioned that autism and transgender identities often correlate. His wife also appears to be on the spectrum, although he hasn't disclosed any official diagnosis. We used to be friends. I introduced them. He is clearly insecure in his masculinity and worries that his son is effeminate, using this anxiety to fuel bigotry. I find it exhausting to deal with him. Every time I see him, he makes an obnoxious comment. I even chose not to invite him to my birthday lunch because the restaurant manager is non-binary, and I didn't want to subject them to any hostility from him. Story 63. Condescending outlooks rooted in negativity can be overwhelming. I used to feel similarly, but therapy helped me develop a positive yet pragmatic perspective on life. It's exhausting at times, but I believe there is always something good to inspire self-growth and self-care. Maintaining empathy was challenging, but therapy significantly improved my ability to cultivate positivity for myself. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.